Which one's your favorite?
I go between the red and white because this is our primary color, obviously. And that's what we started out with. You know, we weren't the Maroons. We weren't going to be anything other than Cardinal red. And that's what Chris O'Brien said when he bought the used jerseys from the University of Chicago Maroons.
That was this one, right?
Coach Amos Alonzo Stagg, yeah. And so he said, this isn't maroon, this isn't burgundy, this isn't red, this is Cardinal red. We'll call ourselves the Cardinals from here forward. So it was pretty cool.
In the very beginning, you would see people playing football dressed like we are, with just shirts and no protection, no helmets. A few of them may have gotten brave and taken cardboard and made some kind of protection for their head, but no mouth guards, of course, no face mask. It was quite a different game, but that was what padding was like. And uniforms, typically as they evolved, were quite heavy, with the thought being that you could wear these through the entire season. In fact, it was a big surprise, I think, in the 1930s when the Cardinals got new uniforms, and one of the newspapers said that the boys looked fresh out of Sunday school in their nice togs, as they called them. I got interested in the Cardinals because my dad was drafted back in the 40s, and part of his contract, besides earning the lofty $110 a game, he had to supply his own shoes and shoulder pads, but that was the NFL back in the 1940s. So uniforms progressed better, got home and away, became more lighter, but back in the old days, that wool would start scratching and players found it quite uncomfortable. Yeah, the uniforms got so uncomfortable, and especially if you're traveling. In fact, one of the road trips to California for the Cardinals, Jimmy Councilman wanted the players to get out at every stop and at least do calisthenics. And Chet Bulger, the great tackle for the Cardinals, said, after about the second day, it was a 4-day ride, some of the other passengers avoided us very greatly. So kind of nice, but that was uniforms, yeah.
It was important to me that we honor the history of the team and some of the tradition, but also evolve this uniform into something that's going to be embraced by our fans, by our players, by everyone. We need to stay focused on doing something that is uniquely Arizona, but also have something that evolves and uses our color palette and evolves our color palette in a way that's great.
And the Cardinals have maintained that color scheme in some fashion or another, adding maybe different colors along the way. And it's been very interesting to follow that, how it went from the early supposedly maroon from the University of Chicago to where we are today. It's kind of dramatic, but keeping the name throughout all those years as well as the color scheme.
So there were a number of people that inputted. Number one was the design team that does this professionally every day at the National Football League and at Nike. Those two design teams were super helpful in helping us choose things that were uniquely Cardinal and drew on the history of the Cardinals, the tradition of the Cardinals, and some of the things that we had done in the past.
Hi, my name is Christy Lazonis, nicknamed Kalo, and I'm really excited to have worked on the Cardinals uniform redesign for this upcoming season. So the three main things that we focused on. How do we tell the traditional story and amplify some elements from the past? How do we bring it through the lens of modern classics so that it feels fresh, unique, and different for the franchise? And also, how are we inclusive of all of the fans in Arizona and the players as well, to really get people excited for what's coming out with this uniform? My favorite part of any uniform design project, especially in the NFL, is being able to kind of deep dive into the history, learn something new, which is amazing. I love learning and researching, and then finding a way to express that in a really unique canvas that is the uniform. So, most people don't expect a football uniform to be the place to go to learn the history of the Cardinal or the importance of certain minerals in a state. Yet here we are, finding these really interesting cues that can amplify the look of a uniform and tell a story that's so much more meaningful for both the players and the fans. It's something that the team can be proud of and can really represent the state itself.
I also relied on senior leadership here. We involved Kyler Murray in it early on and wanted Kyler's input. I know that he was all for a clean look. that was something, the red on red was something that not only Kyler loved, but my father loved. My father loved that when we would wear red on red, dating back all the way to Sun Devil Stadium. Lisa Manning, who played a really important role, she has been our brand manager, who's really been the person that I look to, and I've looked to for a long time over the decades to help us really stay consistent to our brand and continue to build our brand. And this was something that she did a fantastic job on this project.
Our culture has always been inclusive and welcoming. You guys know I speak this on a daily basis. We really were high on technology and the fabrication of the uniform. Anything that Nike was coming out with that was new, that would help players' performance, Michael was very interested in that. So we took all those things into consideration. And again, dynamic, youthful influence was really at the top of the list. So you'll see it's red on red, and I always think of Mr. B, so we knew how fond he was of that color scheme. The Arizona on the front replaces what used to say Cardinals. That's obviously an homage to the state. We know our fans have always been interested in having something that was more representative of where we play versus the name of the team.
Arizona being on the jersey, we've had Cardinals on there, we've had the state flag on there, but we thought this was the most prominent, and we thought that this was a really good, clean look.
The red uniform is truly using color as a weapon and just immersing the team in that tough red that's so important to the Cardinals franchise, and being able to expand that out throughout the stadium and amplify that through the fans so that everyone collectively can bring that heat on game day. So the away uniform was a really clean, iconic aesthetic, wanting to play off of elements from history. So the stripes were something that we felt was really a brand identifier from past teams. We wanted to bring into the modern era this kind of modern, futuristic look, and then layering in the Cardinals wordmark as well. So you've got an Arizona look for the home, and you've got a Cardinals-based look for the away. So it was a nice balance throughout the uniform closet, as well as really kind of paying homage to history, and so we're really able to bring innovation to another level visibly on the uniform.
So when we were looking at all the different options and considering the elements that we wanted to have involved, one of the things is we want a really clean look. So the white on white, we thought it was important to put the Bird Gang in here, to remember that we're always playing for the Bird Gang. We give a nod to tradition. This striping pattern is one that the team has worn off and on for years, and I think it's a nice nod. We didn't have silver in there, we had black, but I think it's a nice nod to our history, and it ties in with the striping from the shoulders. And that was something to where we wanted a clean look, but we also wanted to be identifiably Cardinals with this uniform. And I think that will give it to us while still keeping that clean white, silver, and red look on the road. I think this is going to be fantastic.
We're taking something from history that's really meaningful, and we're just amplifying it and modernizing it in a way that it can represent the future. So, we always say, respect the past, represent the future, and I feel like we're there on this uniform, and it was really an amazing element to be able to work with, to be able to bring that kind of modern remix of something that was really iconic from the franchise history.
I think this next generation of this uniform is going to be one that's filled with excitement, and I can't wait to have JG get this team on the field in this new uniform and really get this thing rolling.